I called this presentation Using Specifications Grading to Shift the Focus from Learning the Content to Learning in Context. And I'll tell you a little bit more about what I mean by that. So my reasons for choosing specifications grading, I think a lot of people have a kind of a similar way that they ended up here, was that I felt like my grading was misaligned with my teaching philosophy. So my philosophy is, I want to just help students learn to learn the material, become engineers, think about, what their possible impact can be as engineers. But I was having so many conversations about, well, don't you think I should have gotten this point, or that's not fair with this rubric. I really don't like this approach of looking for cheating or making sure that my assessments are like that academic integrity is the thing that I'm going to crack down on, right? I really don't like those elements of being of teaching the way that I think, like with the grading, is kind of just like, this is how it is, instead of really thinking through like, well, what is a really more evidence-based approach to assessing students and helping them learn. And so the other thing I really didn't like was evaluating students' crises of like, oh, I have, this horrible thing that happened to me, I need to miss this quiz. And so trying to think like, how can I design my course so that all those things kind of automatically happen and I can just be there to support students, rather than having to think like, is this important enough to warrant an extension or something like that. So I wanted students to I wanted really to think about learning in context, like, why are we learning this? How are you learning this? Why is it necessary? And then also, how can they become like agents over their own learning, really gaining that autonomy in learning? So those were some things I really wanted students to think about in my class. And the current grading approach was just not really prioritizing that. And so when I heard about specifications grading, I was excited to try it. I had previously used contract grading in my graduate classes with like fewer than 12 students. So this is similar, but also works in the context that I teach in. So I'm teaching this course, Mechanical and Aerospace Engineering 10, and it's called Introduction to Engineering Computation. So it's a required course for mechanical and aerospace engineering students. It also counts as kind of the introductory programming class for other students in our college. So I often have students from materials or chemical engineering or just different departments in the School of Engineering. It's typically first-year students. I teach it both in the fall and in the spring. And in the spring, it's still mostly first-year students who just didn't take it that first quarter, but I do have some repeaters. And this quarter, I have 151 students, and I say that because I want to emphasize, right, like this is doable with my medium, large size class. And so I'm excited to share more about it. So I do have a grade tracker, and I worked through this quite a lot with Kate and Bo, trying to think about like, what are the things that I want students to be able to do? And so I have 4 quizzes. I don't actually have any big exams. This is part of my philosophy. This had already been in place before specifications grading of just doing quizzes. It just kind of lowers that stake of a high stakes assessment. And so 4 quizzes, they can miss one, right? So this is that element of sometimes things come up. They can maybe be good things. Like I've had a student get married before and needed to miss a quiz. And before specs grading, I was just like, oh, well, sorry, like congratulations. Or they have something catastrophic happen where I've had students, right, like, really tragic things, losing family members, losing friends, and they need to be able to miss a quiz. And so it's allowing me to just be there for them through kind of some of those challenging times and say, the course has been designed so that you can miss something and still earn the grade that you want. But so really coming up with like, well, what are the things that I want all students to be able to do in order for me to even consider passing them? And I want them all to pass these quizzes, right? These are the specific MATLAB, right? Learning the content, in these quizzes that I want to be able to say, right, this is one of the first engineering classes students take, to be able to tell like any next instructor, yes, these students can do these tasks. And so they can pass those. And if they earn below a 70%, they automatically are eligible to submit a regrade request. I do it all through grade scope, so it's all really nicely organized. So if they earned less than a 70, they can submit a regrade request. They have a week to do it. And then they can increase, the score that they get. So I do score the quiz on Gradescope with like points, and then I download like what students passed. And then I know this isn't super efficient, manually just go through and give a 0 to the students that didn't pass and a 1 to the students that did. So on Canvas, it only shows if they passed or don't pass something. Everything has either 1 point or 0. And then I can go back and update once they pass something. This is something I could easily do, just like upload a spreadsheet of 1s and 0s for students instead of doing it manually, but that's what I've done so far. And then just with homework and application activities, they're based on completion. And then I have a group project and an individual project. That this is a new thing this quarter. The group project, I was getting kind of a lot of grief about some students that just weren't participating until the very end, and then needing to like tack them onto a group that already, developed their ideas and adding the student. And so it's nice now that I can say, if that didn't happen, right, if you somehow missed all my announcements about signing up for groups, then you can still pass the class with a C by doing the individual project. So that's something that I felt was like a relief to me, because it was really stressful for me to have students like come at the end saying, oh, I didn't know there was a group project, which is really frustrating because I think I announced it numerous times. And then I have this is also new, the learning reflections, really trying to encourage that metacognition of students recognizing, why am I learning this? How's it going to help me? What's the purpose? And so in order to earn an A, they have to do 2, a B, they have to do 1, and then other grades, they don't have to do 1. And so and then I have a plus and minus system where they can do additional things to earn a plus, and they can do 1 fewer homework or application activity to earn a minus in the class. And so one thing that you'll notice, I don't have any tokens, because I found that to just be too overwhelming for me to think like through the token tracker and when can they use them. And so instead I decided to just allow everyone to drop at least 1 assignment. So that, kind of accommodates the lateness or idea of using a token without having to keep track of them. But maybe I'll change that in the next iteration. So I want to talk a little bit more about some of the activities in my class that I feel like specifications grading has really allowed me to kind of put more of a focus on these, to kind of align with my teaching philosophy more. So since everything just is a point or no point, like did you do it or not, it kind of elevates everything to the same level of importance in my mind of these are all important things that I want you to be able to do and think about. And so application activities are things that I assign on a weekly basis where students have to reflect on various topics like ethical and professional engineers and what makes you an ethical professional engineer, thinking about product diversity and the diversity of people and companies, consequences of code, sustainability, ecosystems. And it really just, previously I'd thought of them more as like add-ons, and students kind of thought like, oh, do I have to do these? And so now it's really clear you need to do a certain number for whichever grade you want. The group project is an opportunity for students to really be creative, but some students really just hate group projects. And since that's not like the most important learning objective in my class, I decided that it was okay for students to not do it and still pass, although I wouldn't consider that, a higher grade. And so that has been a way for me to kind of build that into the class. And then the learning reflections, which I already mentioned on the last slide, really just from my grade tracker, you can see that to earn an A, you just have to do more things and with a little bit more critical thinking. And so that really feels aligned with my teaching philosophy of I can really distinguish between my A students and my C students, not just because they can use MATLAB, but because of the way they're engaging with the material and thinking about the material and using it. So I'm still in the middle of my very first iteration of using specifications grading. And so far I think it's going really well. I have a couple of like some small hangups that I'm curious about. I know the question answer session is for people to ask us questions, but maybe if someone has an answer to this, then that would be helpful. The thing that I'm struggling with right now is I had one student turn in their learning reflection late. And I just feel like, should that really cause them to fall into the B category just because they missed it by, a couple hours? But But it is very specific and simple, right, to follow all these. But now I'm wondering, like, was that too much of a lift to say that you have to turn that in on time? So that's one thing that I'm still struggling with. But my first quiz, I give my second quiz next week. But my first quiz, I only had 8 students below a 70%, and that seems really reasonable for regrade requests. It's something, we can look at their resubmissions. They have to include a citation of what they did wrong and where they found the evidence that they've now understood the concept. And so that feels really reasonable and like it will work. And my goal here is to just reduce cheating. And I tell students this exactly. It's like, there's no point, because you can redo it. You can, if today doesn't go as you wanted on this quiz, then you can sit down, you can come to office hours and learn what it was that you missed. And so there's really just a benefit for you to really do your best and take the quiz on your own, right? There's no reason for you to need to cheat or violate our academic integrity policy. So that's all I have so far. I'm excited to continue working on this. I think it's exciting to continue iterating my teaching and just always learning new things. I'm thinking I probably want to in sometime institute some sort of token system, be maybe a little clearer on the learning objectives. That was really cool to see John Eric having those really spelled out. I like that. I think that I can maybe iterate that on my next go around. And then so the other thought that I have is maybe I can just add a third learning reflection, because every other category you're allowed to miss one thing except for the learning reflections. And so that would be really easy to just say, there's one more opportunity to do a learning reflection, do, week 8 or something like that. So something I'm thinking about. But I just want to say thank you to everyone. It's been really fun getting to hear everyone's journey through specs grading and getting lots of ideas. So thank you for listening.